All right, we begin our show today with special coverage by our very own ILTV team who accompanied former United States Secretary of State Mike Pompeo during his recent visit to Israel. Pompeo receiving a special award from the settlement movement for all of his work and support in the settlements of Judea and Samaria. And joining us now for more is our own Asaf Nissan, who was there on the ground for the ceremony. Asaf, it's great to have you back with us. Now, what exactly was the reason for this visit?
The reason itself was, as we said, Pompeo coming to Israel to receive a special award from the settlement movement for helping with their legal status, pretty much making them in a better situation than they were. I mean, not exactly calling them 100% legal in the eyes of the world.
By saying that they're not illegal per se.
Well, pretty much acknowledging the U.S.'s recognition of the settlements of being legal, so making it optional for them to build.
Sure. All right. Well, so, how was the tour? And where did you start your day?
So the tour itself started off in the ancient city of Shiloh. Pretty much from there, together with the Pompeo family, going around learning the history of the place, was very moving, very interesting. And of course, we had a really nice press in the end from Pompeo himself, pretty much calling in Shiloh against the entire decisions of the Biden administration, fighting against them, calling them off, and saying everything pretty much is going to ruin all the hard work they've been doing up to now. And also calling to support what he calls the Pompeo Doctrine.
Interesting. All right. Well, we'll get more, I think, on the Pompeo Doctrine soon. But who was there? Any notable figures or interesting members?
In the tour itself, it was pretty much the Pompeo family, so we didn't see too many well-known figures. But when we moved to the Psagot winery, pretty much the who's and who's of the Yesha Council, the entire settlement movement, right, government officials from the right, and of course former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu came to visit and congratulate.
All right, and so what was the most interesting thing that you heard from him throughout the day?
Well, there've been quite a few, but I think the most interesting for me was that declaration in Shiloh where he called out the Biden administration as a criminal for literally calling Israel a thief, and the fact that they want to steal again the lands from the Palestinians, despite the fact that in his eyes, and of course in the eyes of Israel, those lands are part of the Israeli nation. So there's no reason really to call it a thievery.
We're speaking about Area C specifically. In the settlements that are in Israeli-controlled areas. All right. Well, without further ado, let's take a brief look at your trip.
We're here in Psagot in a special visit by former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, receiving an award from the settlements of Judea and Samaria for his ongoing support, together with former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, members of parliament, and different figures of the right.
It is deeply humbling to be here today in this incredibly special place in the world.
We have no greater ally than the United States, and in the United States, we have no better allies than Mike Pompeo and some of his friends.
Beginning in the ancient city of Shiloh, Secretary Pompeo, along with his family, went on a private tour of the site, learning about its importance to the Jewish people. At the end of the tour, after receiving a special souvenir from the visit, Secretary Pompeo gave a short speech calling out the decisions of the Biden administration and asked to strengthen the policy that is known as a Pompeo Doctrine.
It makes clear that Israel exists within its present territory, with legal title and sovereign legitimacy as a matter of international law. The Biden administration is now preparing to reverse that doctrine and have our country once again suggest that the Jewish state of Israel is an illegal occupier.
From there, Secretary Pompeo moved on to the Psagot winery for a private lunch alongside former U.S. Secretary of Treasury Steven Mnuchin, former U.S. Ambassador David Friedman, and other prominent figures. Afterwards, Secretary Pompeo arrived at the main event joined by former Prime Minister Netanyahu, who came to honor the Secretary for all his hard work and collaboration, and telling the audience what a visionary.
When you came out with your declaration, you were affirming something that was known and understood by the leaders of I would say the enlightened leaders of the world exactly a century ago. In Versailles, in San Remo, and the other conferences that sought to shape the Middle East after World War I. This is our land. This is our land.
It was clear throughout the event that this award means a great deal to the people of Judea and Samaria, as Pompeo was the first U.S. secretary who officially recognized the legal status of the settlers which allowed them to build.
We remember his declaration that say that the Jewish community here in Judea and Samaria, they are under the law, under the international law, and Jewish can build in Eretz Israel, in the Jewish land. So for us, the Secretary of State, the former Secretary of State, will be always our big friend and big support of Israel and big support of the heart of the Bible land.
So looking at the broad picture, I find this a very positive event from the aspect of Israel, from the aspect of Israel's security. It tells you that more and more people in the US understand that Judea and Samaria are part of the state of Israel and that Israel needs those areas for its security and for its future.
And when it came time for the guest of honor to speak, he told the audience that despite all the scary premonitions that the decision to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem will lead to war, ended up with a recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of a Jewish state, and also telling the world a simple truth.
Was that the rightful capital of this nation ought to be the place where we have our embassy. I'll never forget the meetings that said there will be war. This will create intifada. This creates enormous risk. And yet, President Trump was bold. He was prepared. We did the work. And we made the simple, truthful statement and moved our embassy to the rightful capital of the Jewish homeland. We made the simple statement that Israel is not an occupying force in Judea and Samaria.
But throughout the entire event, one question was in everyone's mind. Will we see Secretary Pompeo on his way to the White House in 2024?
I can only learn from the past, and with my understanding of this behavior of this specific individual, that he has plans for the future, and we obviously are part of these plans.
Asaf Nissan, ILTV.
All right, now in continuation with Pompeo's visit, we're once again joined by ILTV reporter Asaf Nissan. Asaf, it looks like you had a lot of fun in Shiloh and in the Psagot winery with everybody, but I understand that in addition to escorting the Pompeo family in the ceremony, you interviewed him. How was it?
Well, besides the fact that we're talking about one of the most interesting people in this era, I have to say it was really riveting, and it was really interesting to hear his personal thoughts on the different subjects and different topics that came throughout the conversation. Pretty much, I would say it was spectacular.
Any special interests or points of interest that you want to share with us or draw our attention to?
So two of them that I really noticed throughout the interview was one, the fact that he was talking about how the Biden administration, with the fact that they're taking now their obligation to reopen the Palestinian mission to the Palestinian mission in East Jerusalem as a crime. That's one thing. And of course, also the fact that the Abraham Accords will lead to a more powerful, stable area, especially with Iran now being on the verge of a nuclear bomb.
All right. Well, it sounds like some presidential speaking. Maybe he's hinting at something.
Potentially. I mean, you know how it goes with these things.
Exactly. All right, but let's actually take a sneak peek here at your interview.
You can count on my continued support for the relationship between the United States and Israel. Who knows what role that will be in? Today I'm here just as an American citizen coming to share my deep and abiding love for this really special place here in Israel. I'll stay in this fight. It is really important. It's important for Israel. As an evangelical Christian, I love this place.
Asaf, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, and to see the full exclusive interview with former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, make sure to visit iltv.tv or download our new ILTV Plus platform on the Apple or Android app stores.